I had always considered myself an independent person. Living alone had its perks, and after a long week of work, I was looking forward to a quiet Friday night by myself. I settled into my cozy apartment. The soft hum of the city outside my window, a comforting backdrop to my evening. Little did I know, this night would be far from ordinary. It began innocuously enough. I had just finished dinner and was curled up on the couch, a bowl of popcorn in hand, ready to binge-watch a new series. The rain pattered softly against the windows, the kind of gentle storm that made staying inside feel even cozier. As I clicked through the streaming options, I felt a strange draft sweep through the room. I glanced around, noticing that one of the windows in the living room was slightly ajar. Odd, I thought, but didn't give it much more consideration. I got up, closed the window, and locked it tight. Returning to the couch, I resumed my show, losing myself in the drama on the screen. The hours slipped by, the storm outside growing more intense, lightning flashing intermittently, illuminating my darkened living room in stark, brief bursts. It was during one of these flashes that I saw it, a shadow, just at the edge of my peripheral vision, moving across the hallway. My heart skipped a beat. I paused the show, straining my ears for any sound beyond the pounding rain. Silence. I shook my head, chastising myself for getting spooked so easily. "It's just the storm playing tricks on you," I muttered. Despite my attempt to brush it off, an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. I decided to check the apartment just to be sure. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed, a leftover from my college days, and cautiously made my way through each room. The kitchen was empty, as was the bathroom and the small guest bedroom. Finally, I reached my bedroom, the last place to check. Pushing open the door, I flipped on the light. The room was undisturbed, everything in its place. I let out a sigh of relief and set the bat down by the door. Maybe it really was just my imagination. Returning to the living room, I tried to shake off the lingering unease. Hours later, I finally decided to call it a night. I turned off the TV, double-checked the locks on the windows and doors, and headed to bed. I was just beginning to drift off when I heard it, a faint, scratching noise like fingernails on wood, coming from somewhere within the apartment. My eyes snapped open, heart pounding in my chest. I lay still, straining to hear. The scratching continued, slow and deliberate. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The narrow beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing out of the ordinary. Cautiously, I got out of bed and grabbed the baseball bat again. Following the sound, I found myself back in the living room. The noise was louder here, definitely coming from behind the wall. It sounded almost like claws. I stood there, frozen, the scratching continuing relentlessly. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, my own breathing loud in my ears. I backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at me to leave, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. Just as I turned to head back to my bedroom, the lights went out, plunging the apartment into complete darkness. Panic surged through me, and I fumbled for my phone, the small flashlight barely illuminating the space around me. The rain hammered against the windows, the storm outside reaching its peak, and then I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from the direction of the hallway. I swung the flashlight beam around, my breath catching in my throat. There, at the edge of the light, was a figure, its eyes glinting with a malevolent sheen. The figure stepped forward, and I caught a glimpse of its face. Twisted and grotesque, a horrifying blend of human and beast. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the phone, my mind racing. What was this thing? How had it gotten into my apartment? Without thinking, I turned and bolted for the front door, but as I reached it, I realized the deadbolt was jammed. I yanked at it desperately, but it wouldn't budge. Behind me, the creature was getting closer, its growls growing louder, more insistent. In a final, desperate act, I flung the baseball bat at the figure and raced for the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. I shoved a chair under the doorknob, hoping it would hold. My heart was pounding, and I could hear the creature scratching at the door, the sound filling me with a primal terror. I climbed out of the window, the cold rain lashing at my face as I clung to the ledge. I managed to make my way to the fire escape, descending as quickly as I could. Once I reached the ground, I sprinted down the street, not stopping until I was several blocks away. Breathless and soaked, I finally collapsed on a bench, my mind racing. What had I just seen? I knew I couldn't go back to the apartment, not with that thing inside. I pulled out my phone and called the police, trying to explain what had happened between gasps for air. By the time they arrived, the storm had subsided. The officers went in to check the apartment while I waited outside, shivering in the early morning chill. When they returned, they looked puzzled. They had found no sign of the creature I had described, no evidence of forced entry, nothing out of place, except for the baseball bat lying in the middle of the living room floor. They assured me it was probably just my imagination, a trick of the light and shadows during the storm. But I knew what I had seen, what I had heard. That night, something had been in my apartment, something that shouldn't have been possible. I never went back. I moved out the next day, breaking my lease and finding a new place across town. Even now, months later, I still have nightmares about that night. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I can hear scratching at the walls, a low growl echoing in the darkness. I don't know what it was that visited me that night, and I hope I never find out. But one thing is certain, I will never be alone in the dark again.